Whether it's a prison for drunks, borrowed from the Scottish coat of arms, from a logo competition, or inspired by Benfica, here's how 20 British football clubs got their logos. Special Relegation Edition. North London's most successful club were originally founded south of the River Thames in Woolwich by workers at the Royal Arsenal, which was a facility used to research and produce armaments for the British Armed Forces. The first crest featured 3 cannons from above, with 3 pictures of Chewbacca, taken from the coat of arms from the Metropolitan Borough of Woolwich. After moving north of the river to Highbury and changing their name from Woolwich Arsenal to just Arsenal, the badge was changed to a single cannon facing west. The next design flipped the cannon to face east, only for the next design to flip the cannon back to facing west. In 1949, a more detailed shield design was introduced, which was tweaked ever so slightly over the years. It featured a Gothic font and a tiny version of the coat of arms for the borough of Islington, which is where the club moved to in 1912. This was used until the current badge was introduced in 2002. While the crest is the primary logo for the club, the cannon has appeared on its own, originally on an away and goalkeeper shirt in 2021, appearing on the home kit for the 24-25 season, and it feels like a throwback to shirts from a few decades ago. Back in the early 20th century, Arsenal had several text-based logos too. In the 1930s, they used a monogram logo that was also used at the entrance to Highbury's East Stand and is still there to this day. Plus, the logo appears on items of retro clothing in Arsenal's store. Aston Villa's rampant lion is derived from the red lion seen on the Scottish coat of arms. Thanks to local Scots William McGregor, a committee member and founding member of the EFL, and George Ramsey, a former player and manager for Villa, who held the record for the most league title wins until he was surpassed by Fergie in 1999. A white star will be added to represent the club's 1982 European Cup win, but this wasn't added until 2007. The rampant lion has flip-flopped between red and yellow, and the club can't seem to decide if they prefer the shield or the roundel design, although the use of the red lion has been compared to a similar lion seen on the crest for the Scottish club Rangers. In 2016, there was a great design with a refreshed line that was binned in 2023 for a revival of a classic roundel design, only for this design to be killed within one season, and the 2016 crest was brought back and made much worse. The motto often seen on the Villa crest is "Prepared," which was dropped in 2016 as apparently it was too difficult to read when the crest was scaled down. I was hoping there would be some interesting history behind the motto, but there really isn't any, and it's been the club's motto since 1878. Bournemouth's first badge was based off the town's coat of arms, which references the city's gardens and parks and the fish from the River Stour that marks the boundary between Christchurch and Bournemouth. And like a lot of clubs, they had a logo in the 60s that was just their initials,
which was the style at the time.
Well, at first glance, their current logo is kind of generic and boring. The head in the logo is meant to be Dickie Dowsett, who played for Bournemouth in the late 50s and early 60s. Despite what the logo represents, Dowsett doesn't have an ear on his neck like in the badge, but he did play a crucial role in rebranding the club in the 70s, as the badge with the droopy ear was first introduced in 1972 and has been gradually updated ever since. In 1981, a short-lived design was used that featured 2 cherries and a football, which I'm not sure if it looks a bit rude or not, but in early 2024, a new logo was leaked that was a modern refresh of this design, including the full name and founding date rather than just the nickname. It was speculated that this would be used for the 24-25 season, but instead it appears to have only been used on merchandise and for Michael B. Jordan's clothing collection. Apparently, the origins of Bournemouth's nickname the Cherries is a bit murky. It either simply comes from the colour of the kit, or the more elaborate explanation is the location of their stadium. Originally named Dean Court, it was next to the Cooper Dean estate, which apparently had cherry orchards within its grounds. Brentford are a club with a varied logo history featuring heraldic shield, roundels and a cartoon bee. This was a short-lived design that was only used to celebrate the club's centenary in 1989. The current logo appears to be a refreshed version of a logo from 1972 that featured a roundel with the bee and the team's colours. When the current design was first revealed in 2016, the bee was criticised for looking a bit too much like a hornet or a wasp. It replaced one of the messiest club logos you'll ever see, which was a refreshed version of a better design from the 1960s. The design featured imagery from the coat of arms of Brentford and Chiswick, such as 3 short swords known as sea axes, along with a beehive and the team's signature stripes. Despite Brighton and Hove Albion being known as the Seagulls, the club's original nickname was the Dolphins, as they're regularly spotted off the coast. They're used in imagery around the town, featured in the coat of arms, and in the club's logo in 1974. The club apparently got their new nickname during an encounter with Crystal Palace fans, thanks to English football's most confusing regional rivalry. Prior to a home match, a group of Crystal Palace fans started chanting Eagles, with the Brighton and Hove Albion supporters responding with the chant Seagulls. The Seagulls would become the new nickname and first featured on the badge in 1977. The Seagull was always pictured flying west until 2011 when it was flipped to flying east, which is also a refreshed version of the badge from 1977. And in the 2001 season, the badge was changed to the coat of arms for Brighton and Hove to celebrate the club's centenary, a reference to the original badge for the team. 2 years later, Brighton's logo went from complex to minimalist, as their home shirt featured a simple logo of just the seagull, but this only stuck around for a few seasons. Chelsea's original logo was a roundel featuring a pensioner. Not an old age pensioner, the pensioners are army veterans who live at the Royal Hospital Chelsea nearby. This was in place until the 1950s, but was seen as being old-fashioned. It was replaced by a placeholder crest that featured the club's initials, until a new roundel design was introduced that featured a rampant lion holding a gold staff, a combination of two images seen in the coat of arms for Chelsea. Despite having a great logo, the club went through a bit of an identity crisis, as they followed this up with a simple initials logo, then a much worse version of the rampant lion. A new line design was gradually updated over the next 30 years, when the roundel logo was revived and modernised for the club's centenary in 2005. The Crystal Palace was a massive structure built in Hyde Park in 1851 for the Great Exhibition. After the event, the palace was completely deconstructed and rebuilt in a park in Sydenham Hill, which would then be known as Crystal Palace Park. When the structure was rebuilt, it looked very different to the original design. The palace on the team's logo is the rebuilt version, that also features two water towers that were constructed on either side of the palace. At the time, this park also had its own football ground that had hosted the 1901 FA Cup final. The owners of this ground wanted their own team to use the stadium, so they founded Crystal Palace FC in 1905. Despite Palace's obvious namesake, the club originally used a simple initials badge until 1955. The following two crests would feature the famous palace itself, but not long after, the palace was dropped from the logo in favour of whatever this is. The nickname the Eagles was inspired by the Portuguese club Benfica, and an eagle was first featured on the logo in 1973, shown landing on a football. Palace would adopt the Eagles as their new nickname, as they had been known as the Glaziers, no, not them, which refers to the person who would install glass in the Crystal Palace. It was even featured prominently on the short-lived logo in 1972. The Eagle and Palace were finally combined in 1987, and has since been modernised over time, with the most recent version being introduced in 2013. Everton's crest depicts the Everton Lockup, located on Everton Brow in Liverpool. Did I mention I'm talking about Everton? It's a small round building with a cone roof constructed back in 1787, and if the name wasn't a giveaway, it was used for temporarily detaining criminals before being transferred to full-time prisons, but were more commonly used for detaining drunks. It's a pretty odd choice for a symbol of a football club, but the tower has been used to represent the club since 1879, when the club changed its name from St Domingos to Everton, as the club was founded by members of the congregation. The icon first appeared in 1938, set in a shield between two wreaths. While this represented the club, Everton didn't use this crest on their shirts. Instead, it was designed for the official club neckties. It was replaced by a simple initials design, and replaced again by an even simpler initials design. The first crest to be used on the shirts was a refreshed design from 1978. The tower has been used on the crest ever since, including in the 2013 design that was binned after one season thanks to the fans absolutely hating the logo, and a refreshed design was created in 2014. Fulham's badge features the letters FFC in a shield. Fulham actually has a fairly varied logo history, including this badass crest from 1898. Followed by a design that featured a drawing of the actual Craven Cottage that the ground takes its name from. The cottage still stands in the corner of Fulham Stadium. It was originally built in the 1700s in an area that was used as a royal hunting ground. Fulham have also used the borough's coat of arms, as well as simplified versions of the coat of arms, and yet another initials logo. A couple of Ipswich's first logos used the shield seen in their coat of arms, which featured the rampant lion on one side and the bow of three ships on the other. A version of the team's current logo appeared in 1972. The design was chosen during a competition, as it was submitted by a Mr. John Gamage, a former postmaster and treasurer of the Supporters Club. According to Mr. Gamage, in the flamboyant days of the ancient pageant, with kings and noble lords in attendance, knights in shining armour changed and fought in the sporting area on their fiery steeds, and the Suffolk Punch reigned supreme. Which is a little bit confusing, as from what I've read, the Suffolk Punch was mostly used for farming. The badge's castle shape is simply meant to represent the many historical buildings, and the waves reference Ipswich's role as a major port since the Middle Ages. The badge was refreshed in 1995 with the yellow changed to red. Honestly, I do prefer Mr. Gamage's version over the current design. Leicester City are nicknamed the Foxes due to the county having a high fox population and for being the birthplace of fox hunting. A fox has been used on the team's badge since the first version was created back in 1948. Early versions of the crest featured crossed hunting whips behind the fox, but a white flower called the cinquefoil was added in 1992, as this was also used on Leicester's coat of arms. The overall design has received a few minor updates, and the current version has been used since 2010. Liverpool's badge, unsurprisingly, depicts the liver bird, a mythical creature that is the symbol of the city, as it's used on the coat of arms for both universities, the city council's logo, and on top of the Liver building.
Oh no, the Liver building.
Why isn't it called Liverpool then?
Like many other teams, the first crest was based off the coat of arms, until the 1940s, when a bespoke crest was designed for the club. The 1992 crest was introduced to celebrate the club's centenary, and resembles the badge seen today, which included detailing from the Shankly Gate at Anfield. Named after former manager Bill Shankly, who led Liverpool from the second division to the top flight of English football, winning the league 3 times, the club's first FA Cup, and their first European title. To many football fans, he is perhaps best known for this quote.
Somebody said the football's a matter of life and death to you. I said, listen, it's more important than that.
The badge added 2 torches, a symbol of the Hillsborough Memorial. Commemorating the victims of the Hillsborough disaster from 1989, the badge was later refined in 1999 and is still in use today. A few teams have used simplified versions of their badges, such as Arsenal, Chelsea and Man United. Liverpool introduced a simplified badge in 2012 that has been used on the team shirts, while keeping the 1999 crest to represent the club. The logo is a redesigned version of the 1968 logo, which simply depicts the liver bird with the laver seaweed in its beak. Manchester City introduced a roundel design that was based on the city's coat of arms in 1960, which includes the red and yellow striped shield and a ship, a common icon for Manchester as, at its peak, the city was England's 3rd busiest port, despite being 40 miles inland. This roundel design has evolved over the decades. The stripes were replaced with a red rose in 1972, the symbol of the House of Lancaster, who were the opposition to the House of York, represented by a white rose. This may sound like something out of Game of Thrones, but it's actually from the War of the Roses. The black sheep of the family was the 1997 badge, that saw the return of the shield and ship, paired with an eagle and 3 gold stars, which apparently don't represent any trophies or league title wins. Imagine if Man City still used this badge now, as it would look a bit ridiculous. This was replaced with a modernised version of the 1972 badge. Manchester City are owned by the City Group, which have since acquired a number of clubs around the world, which has resulted in many logos looking like direct rip-offs, as roundels are very on trend. In some cases, the badges look like they've been designed with the exact same template. Manchester United's crest is based off the city's coat of arms. Again, United's old crest looked pretty similar to the current design but feature the ship and stripes, with the footballs later being changed to roses. Again, the Red Devil nickname was inspired by the rugby league team the Salford Red Devils, as United's original nickname was the Busby Babes. This was changed in the late 1950s by manager Matt Busby, as he found the moniker to be much more intimidating, and the Devil first appeared on the badge in 1973. The badge was refreshed to the design we see today in 1998. As mentioned previously, a simpler version of the Devil has started to appear on the shirts, with the first appearance being on the 3rd kit from the 23-24 season. Stop me if this sounds familiar, but Newcastle United's badge is based off the city's coat of arms, first introduced in 1988. The design has a number of obvious similarities, such as the shield but with the team's signature stripes, the castle that the city takes its name from, and 2 seahorses. I say seahorses, but they're creatures from Greek mythology called the hippocampus, often seen pulling the chariot of the god Poseidon. They're basically like mermaids, less human, more horse. Newcastle has a pretty short history when it comes to badges, but the 1983 logo has made something of a comeback, as it was featured on the 3rd kit in the 24-25 season. And I probably don't need to explain why Newcastle are called the Magpies. For me, Nottingham Forest have one of the best badges in the country, which is all the more surprising that this design was the result of a contest from 1973. The icon represents the famous Sherwood Forest, with the wavy lines representing the River Trent and the location of their stadium, the City Ground. The design was submitted by David Lewis, a designer studying at the local university. After he was declared the winner, Lewis worked with the club to refine the design, and he was invited back to the club to help create a crest that commemorated 50 years of his design. I really hope he got paid. The crest has only received minor changes ever since, as 2 stars were added for the back-to-back European Cup wins from 1979 and 1980. The previous designs included the belated coat of arms and a laughing bloke that is meant to be Robin Hood. Southampton's crest references the coat of arms, city and surrounding area. The white rose is taken from the coat of arms, while the tree and water represent the English Channel to the south and the nearby New Forest National Park to the west. Up top there's the scarf for the team's colours and the halo to represent their nickname, the Saints. Southampton are nicknamed the Saints as they were founded by members of St Mary's Church. The first church was built all the way back in 634, while the current church was rebuilt on the same site in 1954 after it was destroyed in the Southampton Blitz during World War II. This would also explain where Southampton got the name for their stadium, which is called St Mary's. The original logos were simplified versions of the coat of arms that featured the shield and roses, and some elements were carried over to the current crest. This design was introduced in the 1970s with yet another competition, as it was won by Roland Paris, and his design received some touch-ups in 1997. The Hotspur in Tottenham's name is named after the knight Sir Henry Percy, also known as Harry Hotspur. He was known by the Scots to dig his spurs into his horse when he advanced in battle. The Percy family were Earls of Northumberland, but their descendants owned land in the area that would become North London, such as the location of the club's first ground in the Tottenham Marshes. Sir Henry Percy would inspire Spurs' logo, which originally featured a cockerel, as well as their nickname, the Fighting Cocks. Former Tottenham player James William Scott made a bronze cast of a cockerel standing on a football in 1909, which could be seen on the roof of White Hart Lane. A version of the cockerel standing on the ball would then appear in the logo, and it's been featured in the crest in some shape or form ever since. The club, formerly known as Tottenham, has one of the most indecisive logo histories I've ever seen, as it seems every few years the crest was changed. In 1983, they introduced a crest that looked like it could be based off some coat of arms, but it's actually completely made up, as it featured references to local landmarks like Bruce Castle and the Seven Sisters. A number of badges featured two lions that are apparently a reference to the Percy family's coat of arms, which are also derived from the coat of arms for Northumberland. A monogram that sat underneath the bronze cast at White Hart Lane can also be seen on some versions of the team's old logos, and this monogram was updated for the team's 2024 brand refresh. West Ham United's crest has featured two crossed rivet hammers since 1923. They're a reference to the club's origins, as the club was created by members of the Thames Ironworks and Shipbuilding Company based in East London in 1895. This would also explain West Ham's nickname of the hammers, as the rivet hammer was a common tool in shipbuilding. A castle had been featured on the crest since 1964, believed to represent Boleyn Castle, and West Ham's previous stadium was also called the Boleyn Ground, but to many it was known as Upton Park. It featured two castle structures at the entrance, but the ground was torn down in 2016, after West Ham sold its soul to move to England's worst football stadium. The badge was also changed in 2016 to a simpler design to coincide with the team's move to this new stadium. While losing the castle was a shame, I do prefer the detailing and shading on the new hammers, as this crest added the initials TIW, a neat reference to the original company and team name. Wolverhampton Wanderers are unsurprisingly known as Wolves. A version of the angular wolf logo was introduced in 1979. It's one of those icons that could have been made at any point in the last 80 years, and looks modern even today. Wolves had used the town's coat of arms, but most of their logo history has involved a wolf in some form, with the wolf's head being refreshed several times with mixed results. And the current version was introduced in 2002.